Chapter 9 The Way of Abundance. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust. Job 22:24. The way of abundance is a one-way street. As the old saying is, there are no two ways about it. You are either heading for lack or heading for abundance. The man with a rich consciousness and the man with a poor consciousness are not walking on the same mental street. There is a lavish supply divinely planned for each individual. The rich man is tapping it, for rich thoughts produce rich surroundings. Change your thoughts, and in the twinkling of an eye, all your conditions change. Your world is a world of crystallized ideas, crystallized words. Sooner or later, you reap the fruits of your words and thoughts. Words are bodies or forces which move spirally and return in due season to cross the lives of their creators. People who are always talking lack and limitations reap lack and limitation. You cannot enter the kingdom of abundance bemoaning your lot. I know a woman who had always been limited in her ideas of prosperity. She was continually making her old clothes do instead of buying new clothes. She was very careful of what money she had and was always advising her husband not to spend so much. She said repeatedly, "I don't want anything I can't afford." She couldn't afford much, so she didn't have much. Suddenly, her whole world cracked up. Her husband left her, weary of her nagging and limited thoughts. She was in despair when one day she came across a book on metaphysics. It explained the power of thought and words. She realized that she had invited every unhappy experience by wrong thinking. She laughed heartily at her mistakes and decided to profit by them. She determined to prove the law of abundance. She used what money she had fearlessly to show her faith in her invisible supply. She relied upon God as the source of her prosperity. She no longer voiced lack and limitation. She kept herself feeling and looking prosperous. Her old friends scarcely recognized her. She had swung into the way of abundance. More money came to her than she had ever had before. Unheard of doors opened. Amazing channels were freed. She became very successful in a work she had no training for. She found herself on miracle ground. What had happened? She had changed the quality of her words and thoughts. She had taken God into her confidence and into all her affairs. She had many 11th hour demonstrations, but her supply always came, for she dug her ditches and gave thanks without wavering. Someone called me up recently and said, "I'm looking desperately for a position." I replied, "Don't look desperately for it. Look for it with praise and thanksgiving, for Jesus Christ, the greatest of metaphysicians, said to pray with praise and thanksgiving. Praise and thanksgiving open the gates, for expectancy always wins." Of course, the law is impersonal, and a dishonest person with rich thoughts will attract riches. But a thing ill-got has ever bad success, as Shakespeare says. It will be a short duration and will not bring happiness. We have only to read the papers to see that the way of the transgressor is hard. That is the reason it is so necessary to make your demands aright on the universal supply, and ask for what is yours by divine right and under grace in a perfect way. Some people attract prosperity but cannot hold it. Sometimes their heads are turned, sometimes they lose it through fear and worry. A friend in one of my question and answer classes told this story. Some people in his hometown, who had always been poor, suddenly struck oil on their backyard. It brought great riches. The father joined the country club and went in for golf. He was no longer young. The exercise was too much for him and he dropped dead on the links. This filled the whole family with fear. They all decided they might have heart trouble, so they are now in bed with trained nurses watching every heartbeat. In the race thought, people must worry about something. They no longer worried about money, so they shifted their worries to health. The old idea was that you can't have everything. If you got one thing, you'd lose another. People were always saying, "Your luck won't last. It's too good to be true." Jesus Christ said, "In the world thought, there is tribulation, but be of good cheer. I have overcome the world, thought." In the superconscious, there is a lavish supply for every demand, and your good is perfect and permanent. If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up in consciousness. Thou shalt put away iniquity far from thy tabernacles. Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. Yea, the Almighty shall be thy defense, and thou shalt have plenty of silver. What a picture of opulence, the result of returning to the Almighty in consciousness. With the average person who has thought in terms of lack for a long time, it is very difficult to build up a rich consciousness. I have a student who has attracted great success by making the statement, I am the daughter of the king. My rich father now pours out his abundance upon me. I am the daughter of the king. Everything makes way for me. Many people put up the limited conditions because they are too lazy, mentally, to think themselves out of them. You must have a great desire for financial freedom. You must feel yourself rich. You must see yourself rich. You must continually prepare for riches. Become as a little child and make believe you are rich. You are then impressing the subconscious with expectancy. The imagination is man's workshop, the scissors of the mind, where he is constantly cutting out the events of his life. The superconscious is the realm of inspiration, revelation, illumination, and intuition. Intuition is usually known as a hunch. It is now in Webster's latest dictionary. I had a hunch to look up hunch, and there it was. The superconscious is the realm of perfect ideas. The great genius captures his thoughts from the superconscious. Without the vision, imagination, my people perish. When people have lost the power to image their good, they perish or go under. It is interesting to compare the translation of the French and English Bibles. In the 21st verse of the 22nd chapter of Job, we read, Acquaint now thyself with him, and be at peace, thereby good shall come unto thee. In the French Bible we read, Attach thyself to God, and you will have peace. Thou shalt thus enjoy happiness. The 23rd verse, If thou return to the Almighty, thou shalt be built up. Thou shalt put away iniquity far from thy tabernacles. In the French translation we read, Thou shalt be re-established if thou returnest to the Almighty, putting iniquity far off from your dwellings. In the 24th verse, we read a new and amazing translation. The English Bible reads, Then shalt thou lay up gold as dust, and the gold of Ophir as the stones of the brooks. The French Bible says, Throw gold into the dust, the gold of Ophir amongst the pebbles of the torrents, and the Almighty shall be thy gold, thy silver, thy riches. This means if people are depending entirely on their visible supply, it is even better to throw it away and trust absolutely to the Almighty for gold, silver, and riches. I give an example in the story told to me by a friend. A priest went to visit a nunnery in France, where they fed many children. One of the nuns, in despair, told the priest that they had no food, the children must go hungry. She said that they had but one piece of silver, about the value of $0.25. They needed food and clothing. The priest said, Give me the coin. She handed it him, and he threw it out the window. Now, he said, rely entirely upon God. Within a short time, friends arrived with plenty of food and gifts of money. This doesn't mean to throw away what money you have, but don't depend upon it. Depend upon your invisible supply, the bank of the imagination. Let us now attach ourselves to God and have peace, for he shall be our gold, our silver, and our riches. The inspiration of the Almighty shall be my defense, and I shall have plenty of silver.